Lately, we've been getting a lot of intriguing news in regards to Dez Bryant, and without a doubt, it's been a roller coaster of 2 years for the former Pro Bowl wide receiver. And it all starts with March of 2018, where the number one wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys and one of the more celebrated players on the Dallas Cowboys was released by the Dallas Cowboys. And initially, this was met with Dez Bryant coming out and saying, okay, I don't need the Cowboys. There's probably going to be a huge market for me. Well, that market was there, but Dez Bryant decided to play his entire free agency very smartly. He was very coy about which team he decided to sign with next, even appearing on Hard Knocks for the Cleveland Browns, taking a nice little tour of their facility, and potentially teaming up with Jarvis Landry to form a nice little wide receiver tandem for the number one overall pick, Baker Mayfield. But that never materialized. Dez Bryant would be completely out of football until a couple months later, where he would sign with the New Orleans Saints. But unfortunately for Dez, right as he was preparing to play his first game for the New Orleans Saints, Dez Bryant would tear his Achilles. And you guys know what an Achilles rupture means for most players in the NFL or the NBA. That injury is complete career suicide. You lose your athleticism, you lose your burst, you're not as quick as you once were, and your days in whatever league you must be playing could be numbered. We saw this happening to many great basketball players. More recently, DeMarcus Cousins, who unfortunately ruptured his Achilles and tore his ACL. I have a whole video on that on my basketball channel, The Flight Mike. But even before that, the late, great Kobe Bryant, once he ruptured his Achilles, he went from being one of the greatest scorers in NBA history to being a high-volume, low-efficiency scorer. And if it could happen to Kobe Bryant, you could understand what could happen to any other athlete in any other sport. So Dez Bryant went unsigned this past year because, of course, he's trying to rehab a ruptured Achilles. But more recently, we've been seeing a lot of workout footage being posted onto the internet in regards to Dez Bryant and potentially making a comeback. And one of those videos is a very interesting one. But before we get to that, guys, what's going on? Your boy Mikerophone back again with some crazy NFL offseason news. Now, guys, if you're new to my channel, you haven't subscribed yet, we're almost at 10,000 subscribers. So make sure you hit that subscription button and turn on notifications to get the latest and greatest NFL news straight to your channel. So take a look at this, man. In the offseason, Dez Bryant was doing all kinds of training, trying to potentially catch the eye of some teams. And you have to bear in mind that teams this year have a lot of options for filling up the wide receiver core. For example, this is supposed to be one of the deepest wide receiver drafts in NFL history. Literally, Mel Kiper has like 7 wide receivers going in the first round alone, with Jerry Jeudy being the top prospect out of them all. But the last time we had this deep of a wide receiver draft class, the 2014 NFL draft class, the top wide receiver wasn't the best wide receiver out of the bunch. I'll let you guys decide out of Sammy Watkins, Odell Beckham Jr., and Brandon Cooks which wide receiver is the best. But this class is kind of beginning to look a little bit like that previous class in 2014, maybe even better. But on top of that, you have a plethora of trade options such as Stephon Diggs, for example, is a wide receiver that could potentially leave his squad, that could potentially demand a trade out of Minnesota. AJ Green seems extremely reluctant to return to Cincinnati after them being the absolute worst team in the NFL. There's a lot of options for teams to fill out their wide receiver core, which means if Dez Bryant wants to catch the attention of some team, he's going to have to do it with workouts like these. So just a couple of days ago, the defending Super Bowl MVP, Patrick Mahomes, got in some work with Dez Bryant. And you have to understand, if Patrick Mahomes is getting in work with Dez Bryant, chances are that if Patrick Mahomes likes playing with Dez Bryant, Patrick Mahomes is going to probably hit up Andy Reid and say, yo, Andy, I feel like we could fit Dez Bryant into our roster. And you have to understand, the Kansas City Chiefs aren't new to taking risks like this. Just last year, the Kansas City Chiefs actually brought in former first-round pick and former number one wide receiver for both the Carolina Panthers and the Buffalo Bills, Kelvin Benjamin. And although that didn't really work out, the Kansas City Chiefs clearly have no problem bringing in players that I guess you could say are past their prime or their best years are behind them, and giving him a chance in the high-powered Kansas City Chiefs offense. Another example could be running back LaShawn McCoy, that was literally just signed by the Kansas City Chiefs after being cut by the Buffalo Bills this past year. And look at how that ended. LaShawn McCoy reunited with Andy Reid, and they ended up winning a Super Bowl together. So anyway, we see Dez Bryant and Patrick Mahomes getting some work in. I'm going to include the entire clip on my Instagram page, Flight Microphone, if you guys want to see it without my commentary. And for the most part, man, there's things in Dez Bryant that I typically look for. And one of those things is his athleticism, his ability to cut, and his burst. And it seems like for the most part, Dez Bryant has all of those things. And not only that, but it seems like he has chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. Now, there are some other people there. I don't know if this was a workout strictly between Dez Bryant and Patrick Mahomes, but it appears to be so. And I know for a fact that they wouldn't be working together if they didn't plan on bringing Dez Bryant along. Now, let's be honest with each other. If Dez Bryant were to come along, it would be in a very small role. You have to understand, the Kansas City Chiefs have a loaded wide receiver core. Now, we're talking about Tyreek Hill. Sammy Watkins might not be there after this year, so I feel like Dez Bryant would most likely replace Sammy Watkins. But they also have Demarcus Robinson. They drafted Mecole Hardman. They have Byron Pringle that comes out and does some good stuff here and there. But I feel like Dez Bryant, if he could give the Kansas City Chiefs 50% of what they once had, across from Tyreek Hill, could be very, very dangerous, because Dez Bryant was never that player that depended upon his speed to score touchdowns. He was more the type of player that you would throw it up and he would go and aggressively try to catch it. Now, towards the end of his career with Dallas, he wasn't able to do that as much because he didn't really have a quarterback that trusted him as much as Tony Romo trusted him to throw up those jump balls. And of course, that's what happens when you typically have a new quarterback. But Patrick Mahomes and Dez Bryant seem to be a match made in heaven. Getting a quarterback that could throw the ball like 70 to 80 yards up to Dez Bryant seems very ideal for Dez Bryant if he's even 50% of the player that he once was. And the Kansas City Chiefs could use the depth. Without a doubt, we know that Sammy Watkins is going to leave soon. Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman are both the same type of player, more or less. They're speed demon wide receivers, where Andy Reid mainly uses them for their speed. Not really those type of wide receivers that could go up and just catch those jump balls. So the need is there. The fit makes sense. This could potentially happen. So I am hoping that it does happen, because I feel like, as a Dallas Cowboy fan, I feel like Dez Bryant does deserve some redemption. I feel like he's been through a very tough 2 years. And if he could sign with a high-powered offense that's also the defending Super Bowl champ, that with also probably the best up-and-coming quarterback in the league, let me know in the comment section down below if you think Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. I feel like this is a home run for all parties. You're not going to have to sign Dez Bryant for that much. You know, he's not going to demand that much. He's already made his money in a previous contract with the Dallas Cowboys. And the Dez Bryant brand is a very underrated brand in the NFL. You have to understand that Dez Bryant is one of the top 10 most followed NFL football players on Instagram. So his presence and his brand is phenomenal for the Kansas City Chiefs getting a little bit more exposure, even though they're the defending Super Bowl champions and they have one of the most popular quarterbacks on their roster. I don't see why you don't bring in Dez Bryant. There's not a good reason not to bring in Dez Bryant. You have nothing to lose. So I think what's going to end up happening is the Kansas City Chiefs are probably going to sign him to the preseason roster. Now, you have to bear in mind there's been plenty of situations where a familiar face gets signed to the preseason roster and doesn't make the final cuts. We've seen it plenty of times. The best example that's popping into my mind was Terrell Owens' final run in the NFL was with the Seattle Seahawks. He got cut in preseason, and that's the last we've ever seen of T.O. So I could see something like that happening with Dez. And if Dez really impresses Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs head coaches, then he could potentially have a permanent spot in Kansas City. But if not, then he's probably going to have to move on and probably join the XFL, or maybe some other team would be interested in him, but I just feel like the fit here is really good. I think the only variable that's going to come into play here is how good is Dez Bryant right now? How much of him is still left? Is he still like somewhat that old player, or is he completely washed? Let me know what you guys think based off this footage we've seen of him working out with Patrick Mahomes. I'm your boy Mikerophone, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.